Remove anger from your life. You've felt it before. That heat that rises in your chest without permission. That tightening in your jaw. That voice inside you that says, destroy, explode, retaliate. Anger. It doesn't ask to come in. It just enters. And once it's inside, it burns everything it touches, your relationships, your reputation, your peace, your future. But here's what no one tells you. Anger is not your enemy. Anger is a messenger. And like any messenger, the problem is never the message itself, it's what you do with it. The Stoics understood this more than 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, Seneca. These were not soft men. These were warriors, slaves, emperors, men who faced real loss, real betrayal, real injustice. And they all came to the same conclusion. Anger is a choice. And so is peace. Today, we are going to walk through everything the Stoics discovered about anger, and I'm going to give you a complete system for removing destructive anger from your life, permanently. This is not a quick fix. This is not 3 breathing tips. This is a full transformation. Stay with me. Part 1: What anger really is. Before we can remove anger, we have to understand it at its root. Most people think anger is an emotion. And they're partially right. But the Stoics made a crucial distinction that changes everything. They said, anger is not simply what you feel. Anger is what you decide to do with what you feel. Seneca wrote extensively on this. He said there is a difference between the first movement, the involuntary jolt of irritation, the physical reaction your body has when something upsets you, and the second movement, the decision to dwell in it, feed it, and act from it. The first movement is human. It is unavoidable. You cannot stop your heart from beating faster when someone cuts you off in traffic. You cannot stop the flash of hurt when someone you love dismisses you. But the second movement, the descent into rage, the nurturing of resentment, the explosion that follows, that is entirely within your control. This is the foundation. Write this down somewhere. You cannot always control what ignites the spark. But you are always the one who chooses whether to pour gasoline on it. Now here is where it gets deeper. The Stoics believed anger always comes from a false belief. Specifically, the belief that something external has the power to harm who you truly are. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." When we get angry, we are essentially saying, this person, this situation, this outcome, has power over my inner world. And the Stoics said, nothing does. Nothing can. Unless you give it permission. So what is anger really? Anger is the gap between what you expected and what happened. Anger is a signal that reality has violated your mental model of how things should be. And here is the Stoic challenge. Who told you things should be that way? When you expect the traffic to move and it doesn't, you suffer. When you expect loyalty and receive betrayal, you suffer. When you expect fairness and receive cruelty, you suffer. But the expectation is the problem. Not the traffic. Not the betrayer. Not the cruelty. Now, I want to be very clear. The Stoics were not saying that injustice doesn't exist. They were not saying you should be a doormat. They were not saying betrayal is fine. What they were saying is this: your emotional reaction to injustice is separate from your response to injustice. You can address something, confront something, change something, leave something, all without the poison of uncontrolled anger rotting your insides. That is the goal. Let's go deeper. Part 2: The real cost of anger. You think anger protects you. You think it makes you powerful, fierce, respected. But let me show you what anger actually costs you. It costs you clarity. When you are angry, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for rational thought, planning, and wise decision-making, goes offline. Literally. The amygdala hijacks your entire system. You become, in that moment, incapable of your best thinking. Every decision you make in anger is made by the worst version of you. Think about the most regrettable things you have ever said or done. Were they made from a place of peace? Or from a place of rage? The Stoics called this loss of reason the greatest tragedy of anger. Not the external consequences, but the internal ones. The moment you lose your reason, you lose yourself. It costs you your relationships. Anger corrodes trust. Even if you never become physically violent, the threat of your explosion changes how people relate to you. They walk on eggshells. They stop being honest. They stop coming close. The people you love most will eventually build walls to protect themselves from your fire. And you will wonder why you feel so alone. It costs you your health. Chronic anger, the kind that simmers beneath the surface for years, is one of the most toxic states a human body can be in. Elevated cortisol. Elevated blood pressure. Weakened immune function. Disrupted sleep. Anger that you don't resolve doesn't disappear. It stores itself in your body and slowly dismantles it. Seneca said, "Anger, if not restrained, is frequently more hurtful to us than the injury that provokes it." He wasn't being poetic. He was being precise. It cost you your reputation. One moment of uncontrolled anger can undo years of careful relationship building. One explosion in front of the wrong person at the wrong time can close doors that took a decade to open. People do not forget how you made them feel when you lost control. That image sticks. And most of all, it costs you your freedom. A person who cannot control their anger is not free. They are a puppet. Anyone who knows how to pull their strings can manipulate them at will. The angry person thinks they are powerful. But they are the most easily controlled person in any room. The moment someone provokes you and you react, they have won. They have owned you. Your response belonged to them, not to you. True power is the ability to choose your response regardless of the provocation. That is what we are building today. Part 3: The Stoic Techniques for Removing Anger. Now we get practical. This is the system. Technique 1: The pause. This is the most fundamental tool, and the Stoics spoke of it constantly. Before you respond, pause. Not for a second. Not for a breath. I mean a real pause. A conscious, deliberate step back from the moment. Marcus Aurelius called this creating space between stimulus and response. He practiced it every single morning, reminding himself that the day would bring difficult people, frustrating circumstances, and things outside his control. He prepared himself in advance so that when the moment came, the pause was already installed. In modern neuroscience, this is called cognitive reappraisal, the act of creating enough mental distance from a trigger to evaluate it before acting on it. How do you build the pause? First, notice the physical signs. Anger has a body before it has a voice. Your heart rate increases. Your muscles tighten. Your breathing shallows. Your temperature rises. These physical signals are your warning system. When you feel them, that is your cue. Not to speak. Not to react. But to pause. Second, name what you're feeling. This sounds simple, but it is profoundly powerful. Research consistently shows that simply labeling an emotion, saying internally, "I am feeling angry right now," reduces the intensity of that emotion measurably. You are not suppressing it. You are witnessing it. There is a difference. Third, ask the Stoic question: is this within my control? This is the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, the dichotomy of control. What is within your control? Your thoughts, your choices, your values, your effort. What is outside your control? Other people's behavior, external outcomes, the past. When you are angry, it is almost always because something outside your control has not conformed to your expectations. The pause asks, do I want to spend my energy raging against something I cannot change? Or do I want to redirect that energy towards something I can? Technique 2: Reframe the offender. This one comes directly from Marcus Aurelius, and it sounds almost too simple, until you try it. When someone does something that angers you, ask yourself, why might a reasonable person do this? Not, why is this person evil? Not, how do I punish them? But what could possibly explain this behavior from a human being who, like me, is struggling and imperfect and limited? Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are this way because they cannot tell good from evil. But I have seen the beauty of good, and the ugliness of evil, and have recognized that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own. He wasn't excusing bad behavior. He was inoculating himself against surprise. He was practicing radical understanding. When someone cuts you off in traffic, they may be racing to a hospital. When someone snaps at you, they may be drowning in something you know nothing about. When someone betrays you, they may be operating from wounds so deep they cannot even name them. Does understanding this make the behavior acceptable? No. Does it dissolve the injustice? No. But it removes the fuel. It takes the story of, "This person is attacking me," and replaces it with, "This person is a flawed human being, and so am I." And flawed human beings don't deserve your peace. They deserve your clarity. Technique 3. The view from above. Imagine you could zoom out. Not just from this room, not just from this city, but from your entire life. Imagine looking down at yourself from a great height, seeing this moment, this conflict, this anger, as one tiny pixel in the vast painting of your existence. Will this matter in 5 years? In 10? Will you even remember the name of the person you are enraged at right now when you are old and looking back on what your life was? The Stoics called this the view from above, a meditation on scale. Most of what angers us is small. Microscopic, even. We inflate it through the magnifying glass of our ego until it fills our entire field of vision, and we cannot see anything else. Pull back. See the whole picture. Your anger, examined from the proper distance, will almost always reveal itself as a waste of the only resource you can never get back: time. Technique 4. The evening review. Every night, before you sleep, sit in silence and review your day. This was a Stoic practice called the evening examination, and Seneca describes it in detail. Ask yourself, where did I lose my temper today? What triggered me? Was my reaction proportionate? What would I do differently? This is not self-punishment. This is not rumination. It is calibration. You are training yourself to see your anger patterns clearly. And what you can see clearly, you can begin to change. Over time, this practice rewires you. You start catching yourself earlier in the anger cycle. You notice triggers before they catch you off guard. You develop what the Stoics called premeditatio malorum, premeditation of the difficult, the ability to anticipate challenges and prepare your response in advance. Technique 5. Voluntary discomfort. This one surprises people. The Stoics regularly practice putting themselves in uncomfortable situations, voluntarily. Not to suffer, but to prove to themselves that they could endure discomfort without being controlled by it. Seneca would occasionally eat simple food, wear rough clothing, sleep on a hard surface, not because he had to, but because he was training his inner world to remain stable regardless of external conditions. For anger specifically, this means, deliberately expose yourself to minor irritations and practice your response. Sit in a slow checkout line and choose to remain calm. Let someone have the last word in an argument that doesn't truly matter. Receive criticism without defending yourself. Let a small unfairness pass without retaliation. Each time you do this successfully, you are building a muscle. The muscle of chosen response. And that muscle, over time, becomes the foundation of genuine freedom. Part 4. Anger versus righteous action. Here I want to address something very important, because I have seen people misuse Stoic philosophy in a damaging way. Some people hear, "Remove anger from your life," and think it means, be passive, accept everything, never fight back, never speak up. That is not what this is. There is a profound difference between destructive anger, the reactive, ego-driven rage that burns blindly, and what we might call righteous action, the calm, clear-eyed decision to confront injustice, to hold someone accountable, to say no and mean it. Destructive anger acts from pain. Righteous action acts from values. Destructive anger wants to destroy. Righteous action wants to correct. Destructive anger clouds judgment. Righteous action requires the clearest possible mind. You can be fierce without being blind. You can be firm without being explosive. You can stand in the fire of injustice and respond with surgical precision rather than a wildfire. In fact, you will be more effective, not less, when you act from clarity rather than rage. The most powerful people in history were not those who screamed the loudest. They were those who could hold the most pressure without losing their composure, who could face the most injustice without losing their vision. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire in the world for nearly 2 decades, and he spent that entire time writing private notes to himself about staying calm. Not because he was weak, because he understood that a leader who loses their temper loses their credibility, their judgment, and eventually their empire. What you are building today is not passivity. It is mastery. Part 5: Dealing with people who provoke you. Let's get very practical now. Because most anger doesn't come from circumstance. It comes from people. There are people in your life right now, maybe a family member, a coworker, an ex, a friend, who seem to have a gift for finding the exact thing that sets you off. Some do it unconsciously. Some do it deliberately. Either way, you need a system for handling them. Step 1: Identify your triggers. Be ruthlessly honest with yourself. What specific things does this person say or do that provoke your anger? Can you name them specifically? Because unnamed triggers are landmines. You step on them by accident, and the explosion surprises everyone, including you. Named triggers are disarmed. When you can say, I know that when this person dismisses my opinion, I feel disrespected, and that feeling turns to anger. You have given yourself the warning you need. Step 2: Understand the story you're telling. Anger almost always comes with a story attached. And the story is almost always about threat. They don't respect me. They're trying to control me. They think I'm stupid. They don't care about me. These stories may be true. They may be partially true. They may be entirely false. But the story is what generates the emotional charge. The event itself is neutral until your interpretation gives it meaning. When you feel anger rising, ask, what story am I telling myself right now? Is this story definitely true? What other stories are possible? This is not naive optimism. This is intellectual rigor. You are refusing to accept the first interpretation your frightened mind offers as the only truth. Step 3: Set boundaries, not traps. One of the biggest mistakes angry people make is this: they do not communicate their boundaries clearly, and then they explode when those invisible lines are crossed. This is unfair to both you and the other person. Clear boundaries, communicated calmly, change everything. When you speak to me that way, I will leave the conversation, is infinitely more powerful than suffering in silence and then detonating. Boundaries are not punishments. They are information. They tell people how you need to be treated in order to remain in relationship with them. And here is the Stoic addition to this: if someone cannot honor your boundaries, that is information about them, not a catastrophe for you. You do not need everyone to treat you well. You need to be the kind of person who only tolerates being treated well. Those are very different things. Step 4: Accept that some people are not going to change. This is hard. This requires real grief. Some people in your life have a pattern of behavior that has not changed in years and will likely not change. And every time you interact with them hoping for something different, you are choosing to be disappointed. The Stoics were ruthlessly realistic about this. They said, you cannot change other people. You can only change how you relate to them. That might mean limiting contact. It might mean ending the relationship entirely. It might mean accepting them exactly as they are and adjusting your expectations to match reality. All 3 of these are valid. All 3 are expressions of wisdom. What is not valid is staying in the same dynamic, with the same expectations, and experiencing the same anger, year after year, and calling someone else the problem. Part 6: Healing Stored Anger. Now I want to talk about something that doesn't come up in most Stoic discussions but is absolutely essential. The anger you've been carrying for years. Some of you reading this aren't just dealing with fresh irritations. You're carrying old wounds. Old betrayals. Situations where you were genuinely wronged and never received justice, acknowledgement, or closure. This stored anger is the most dangerous kind. Because unlike fresh anger, which flares and can be addressed, stored anger operates underground. It comes out sideways, through bitterness, through overreaction to small things, through a general sense that the world is against you. The Stoics had a practice for this, and it involves something that many people resist. Acceptance. Not approval. Not forgetting. Not excusing. Acceptance. Acceptance means acknowledging, this happened. I cannot change that it happened. I can choose what it means for my life going forward. The wound is real. The injustice was real. Your pain is valid. And you still get to decide whether that wound defines you or refines you. Epictetus, who was enslaved, literally enslaved, did not spend his life in rage at those who had enslaved him. He spent his life building a philosophy of inner freedom so complete, so total, that no external condition could touch it. He did not do this by pretending the slavery wasn't real. He did it by building something inside himself that was beyond anyone's reach. That is the invitation. What would your life look like if the old anger no longer lived in your body? If you could walk into your past's most painful chapters and feel, not rage, but something closer to peace? This takes time. This takes practice. But it begins with a single decision. I will not let what happened to me determine who I become. Part 7. Building a life where anger has no room. The final piece of this is environmental. We have talked about internal practices. But your outer life matters too. Audit your inputs. What are you consuming daily? What news are you reading? What social media are you scrolling? What conversations are you having? If you are surrounding yourself with content designed to make you outraged, and most social media is exactly that, because outrage drives engagement, you are training your nervous system to live in a constant state of threat. You cannot meditate your way to peace in the morning and then spend 6 hours absorbing manufactured rage in the afternoon. You have to protect your environment the way you protect your body. What goes in shapes what comes out. Choose your relationships carefully. This is something the Stoics emphasized repeatedly. The people you spend the most time with shape your character, whether you realize it or not. If your closest relationships are defined by drama, competition, scorekeeping, and criticism, you will remain in a state of low-grade anger no matter how many breathing techniques you practice. You need at least some relationships in your life that are genuinely peaceful. Where you feel safe. Where you don't have to perform or defend. Where you are seen and accepted. These relationships are not luxuries. They are infrastructure. Cultivate deep purpose. One of the most underrated anger remedies is this: people with a strong sense of purpose are harder to provoke. When you know what you're here to do, and you are actively doing it, minor irritations lose their power. Because your internal world has a center of gravity that the small things simply cannot displace. The angry person is often the person who is disconnected from meaning. The rage fills the space that purpose would otherwise occupy. So ask yourself, what am I building? What am I contributing? What is the direction of my life? And then move in that direction. Every day. Even slowly. A person in motion with purpose is a person with too much to do to stay angry for long. The invitation. You made it here. 60 minutes. And if you've been taking notes, if you've been sitting with these ideas, something has already begun to shift. I want to leave you with this. The Stoics did not pursue the removal of anger as a comfortable philosophy for comfortable people. They pursued it as a survival strategy for people living in a genuinely difficult world. Marcus Aurelius governed an empire under constant threat. Epictetus built wisdom in chains. Seneca navigated one of the most dangerous political courts in history. These were not soft circumstances. These were fire. And these men chose not to be defined by the fire. You have that same choice. Every time you pause before reacting, you are choosing. Every time you ask, is this within my control? You are choosing. Every time you release old anger instead of feeding it, you are choosing. Every time you set a boundary without an explosion, you are choosing. These choices, made consistently over time, do not just change your behavior. They change who you are. They make you into someone that circumstances cannot break. Someone whose peace is not dependent on perfect conditions. Someone who can stand in the storm and remain, at the deepest level, still. That is the Stoic promise. Not happiness in the shallow sense. Not the absence of difficulty. But the kind of inner freedom that nothing and no one can take from you. Begin today. Begin now. Before you go, if this spoke to something in you, if even one idea here has shifted how you see anger, then I have one simple ask. Subscribe to this channel. Because this is what we do here. Every single week, we go deep into the wisdom that actually changes lives, Stoic philosophy, practical psychology, tools for becoming the person you know you're capable of being. There is so much more coming. And I don't want you to miss it. Hit subscribe. Turn on notifications. And I will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. You deserve the peace you are building.